morning, everybody. We'd like to welcome you to AgroChem's webinar, How to Prevent Lameness in Robot Operations. We're glad you're all here, and this is a very important topic for us to go through. Just as a forewarning, as we go through the presentation, if you have a question, if you would like to put it in the chat box, we are going to get to those questions at the very end, and we have left time for that, as we're sure there's going to be much discussion with this as well. And so we will get started. So I would like to introduce our presenters for the day. I'd like to introduce Todd Ward. He has been in the dairy industry for over 30 years. He's a certified professional animal scientist. He's been an independent dairy consultant for Dairy Direct Nutrition for the last 13 years. He is an FMS Level 2 advisor with both certifications from Lely and DeLaval Robots, as well as working with the GIA robot, and he currently holds a registered feed management certification. Chip Hendrickson, who's a hoof health specialist for AgroChem USA. He's been a hoof trimmer for Hendrickson's Hoof Trimming for the last 41 years, and at one time was the largest hoof trimming operation east of the Mississippi. He's been a global hoof trimming instructor for the last 22 years, and has been a member of the Hoof Trimmers Association for the last 25 years. And lastly, we'd like to invite Aaron Lavoie, a hoof health specialist from AgroChem. He's had his own hoof trimming business, Midwestern Hoof Care, for the last 19 years. Had his own Midwestern Hoof Trimming School for the last 8 years, where he's done national and international work. Worked as a hoof health specialist for AgroChem for the last year, and is known on the Facebook and YouTube world as the Midwestern Hoof Trimmer. So I'd like to welcome these guys. And lastly, remind you again, if you have any questions, please put them in the chat box, and we will absolutely have a question and answer at the very end of the presentation.
Good morning, everybody. Thanks for joining us. I'm Aaron Lavoie. Factors for better hoof health in robot barns. Healthy, comfortable cows are very important in robot barns, and some of the biggest factors for healthy, comfortable cows are hygiene, nutrition, and cow comfort. Chip, what would you say you can see here that would be counterproductive to healthy, comfortable cows?
Well, you can see the cows that are perching quite a bit right here. And the first cow, the hocks, skinned up. So looks like they got mattress bedding, actually for bedding, and not much for bedding besides the mattress. And that's where you'll get the skinned up hocks. There's a number of reasons why these cows might be perching, and myself and Todd, we can add on to that. Stall size, and Todd, you have anything to add?
Yeah. So we look at the scraper and the amount of manure that's coming across in that big wave of manure too, right? So, but fly control, ventilation here may be of an issue too.
Yeah, so getting back to healthy, comfortable cows. Another thing that's going to cause them to stand, and they're not doing it in these pictures, but grouping, is air quality. Like Todd said, when a herd animal is uncomfortable in any way or feeling any sort of stress, they're going to bunch up in a group. That's what a herd animal does. So we can prevent that by reducing stress. Improper animal handling and intense barn environment can elevate stress levels in temperature, employees, equipment, and flooring. Also, maintenance trimming, routine hip trimming 2 to 3 times a year, and for maintenance and additional for lameness. Next slide, please. Factors for better hoof health. Foot bath and hoof care prevention and control of digital dermatitis. This is really, really important. There's, especially in a robot barn where things are voluntary, milking is voluntary. Recognizing and treating lameness is very important. Early detection is very important. It's important to recognize lameness, that if it's present, and identify the root cause and treat it. Research shows Lameness reduces productivity at peak yield by up to 20% at an estimated cost of $350 to $800 per case. Now, that's the milk loss. There's a lot more losses involved than just the milk loss. We've got reproduction losses, higher cases of other issues that would require veterinarian care, and then you got the hoof trimmer coming in more too, taken away from cows that should have been being maintenance trimmed.
Milk loss due to lameness. So if you look at this is something that Zimpro had come up with. In a confined herd, how much difference it is in a grazing or a robotic herd. Number one, the biggest reason why you're going to see these differences, you're mildly lame, you're looking at twice the effect in a grazing or a robotic herd as a confined. And you say, well, why is that? Basically, it's because in a confined herd, the cows are guided to the parlor back and forth. So you're actually, someone's in there moving them. So they don't really have a choice. They're driven up. If they're free roaming in robotics or a grazing herd, basically they're not going to feel like getting up. So they're going to feed get their way to the robot less. They're also going to be getting to the feed bunk and the water less. So you're going to have a loss of milk. So lameness in a robotic herd is actually extremely important to keep under control. Types of lameness. Let's look at it. Non-infectious injuries caused by flooring, standing time, stall discomfort, lack of adequate trimming schedule. This can all lead to ulcers and white line diseases. So, and then your upper hoof, non-hoof injuries, such as stifles, cows slipping, hurting themselves, rib injuries, back injuries. Them are things that, that happen in dairies and stuff. But what we're going to concentrate on today is the infectious lesions. Most common is going to be your digital dermatitis. Depends on what part of the area. And people say digital dermatitis, you might call it strawberries, you might call it warts. It's all the same thing. It just has different names in different parts of the country or the globe. And the other thing that foot bath is going to control is foot rot. Okay.
Digital dermatitis is a painful lesion on the soft tissue between the claws and the heel. Although it occasionally occurs on other soft parts of the hoof or foot in the front or in between the claws. Depending on the severity, cows often walk tenderly on affected hooves. This is one of the most painful lesions. Cows will walk, way worse with digital dermatitis than much larger abscesses or ulcers oftentimes. And a lot of times digital dermatitis can cause or lead to these other lesions because it causes her to walk differently on her hoof and potentially put more weight on the other legs as well. A lot of times a cow with one bad foot, like say the back right foot, the back left foot's going to have more bruising on it because the back right foot, she wasn't using it properly. Common causes of this are lack of proper preventative foot bath routine. It's more prominent or requires more control or more effort to control, and poor hygienic conditions in house dairy herds. So the better hygiene the cows, the easier it is to control, but proper preventative foot bath routine. Common treatments: individual cases with symptoms of digital dermatitis should have their feet lifted and examined and treated topically. There's sprays as well that we can use. I personally like the Heel Max spray for topical treatment, but prevention, routine foot baths on a proper topical spray foam routine in heifers and dry cows and milking cows.
Purpose of the foot baths. What are the most important functions of the foot bath? Number one is going to be prevent chronic digital dermatitis from becoming active. It does help in aid of healing of some active digital dermatitis. And then it does help prevent the foot rot. So remember, basically, when you're running your foot bath, we're trying to prevent outbreaks of digital dermatitis. That's going to be the biggest reason. It does help, you know, you can clear up a herd or actually get them under control running your foot bath, but it's difficult. So basically running a foot bath is you're trying to prevent it from becoming active. It should not be used to harden the hooves. I know a lot of people say, well, I need to run this product or this product for hardening up the hooves, but we try not to look at it that way. Basically, if you want to harden your hooves, scrape more often, run your alley scrapers more often. Drier floors makes harder hooves. Where to put the foot bath in a robot barn? Let me see. Todd, this would be an excellent thing for you to probably start out on this. Where would you want to put it?
Very good. So, well, I think the most important part is when we put a foot bath into these robot facilities, or we're starting to build these systems for automated milking, we want to consider the cow's traffic, but we also want to consider the human, right? So we want to make it so it's easy to do. So in this picture, it's at the end of the alleyway, and this works very effectively where we push cows back across from each side. But as we'll see as we go forward in a little bit here, that we have other methods and other ways to looking at what's the proper way to put it into a robot barn. But you know, if we think about this, the cow needs to individually volunteer to be milked, and if she's got a sore foot, she does not like to come to the robot. So if we walk out onto the facility and we catch a lot of cows that are leaking milk in the stall, we ask those cows to get up, and we look at them, and a lot of those cows are lame, and sometimes it gets blamed that the nutrition needs to be changed to get the cow to come to the robot. But if we have a bunch of lame cows because of strawberries or wart issues or digital dermatitis, that you know, they're not willing to come to the robot, so they become a chronic fetch cow. So you know, running a really good foot bath is extremely important in a voluntary system in these milking systems. So how do we run it so that it won't slow down the milking times? Well, there's lots of controversy on this across the industry right now because we're looking at different ways and looking at different studies. And you know, force grouping the cows from one side of the barn to the other, if it's done routinely, probably doesn't affect it as much as if it's not done routinely as we start looking at the numbers. And we're going to share some numbers, or I'm going to share some numbers with you here in just a few minutes about milking speeds through the robot. So the robot will show me the milking speed that it's milking the cow out and the box times associated with that, and we can start to see some real connections between people in the pens affecting with the cows, and when the people are out of the pens, and when we run a foot bath and when we don't. So where is it actually going to get used? You know, if we look in the, if there's a lot of extra work to run the foot bath, as I stated earlier, than the human factor, then it's probably not likely going to be run. We've got lots of dairies that have these beautiful foot baths at the end of the alleys, and they don't get filled because somebody's got to carry the copper sulfate or the solution all the way down, and then they've got to run a hose to get water there. Then they got to clean it out, and all those reasons. So the foot bath usually gets last to get used, and it really affects our turns in the robot. So, next slide. So here, you know, here's a picture of a typical robot barn, and here's an actual active robot barn. So this barn's been running about a year now. There's 8 robots in here, and this is one of my assisted designs here, and I really like this design, and we continue to modify it as we go forward and build them. But what you can recognize here is there's 2 robots, and they face each other, and this is a free flow facility, not a guided. And the cow comes out of the robot, and she's got a platform to stand on before she has to make the decision to go into that communable foot bath that's in between there. And when that happens, it's less likely to slow the turns down in the robot, because she can get out of the robot and the door can close behind her, allowing another cow to come in. And so I really like this design, but there's some critical factors about this design. So if we move forward, you know, as the cow moves forward, and we can run this video, you can watch what happens here. So you see that swing gate that's in between there. It's really important to have that swing gate in there, because if not, the cows will tend to stand in that foot bath and then block the system. So that swing gate helps us to understand, or helps the cow coming out of the next robot. As you can see here, it'll actually end up pushing the next cow. You'll notice very clean after they come out of there. So the slotted drain right there in that floor helps really keep that the cows clean, so that she doesn't come out into a slop of manure and the chemicals in the foot bath has a chance to work on the feet, right? So what you're seeing here and behind there in all those extra gates, the gates hinged by the foot bath itself, and eventually there'll be a cylinder on this gate where we can actually pick and choose which cows that we want to go through that foot bath. So on this particular dairy, the foot bath is run every day on all 4 groups. So we have 4 pens of 2 robots in each pen, and just shy of 120 cows in each of those pens. Again, this is a year that they've been in, just a year in here. And, right now we're averaging about 83 pounds of milk, and with an average visit of 3.15 times a day. And our box time is 7.12. And, and we can all talk about those numbers and say, yep, those numbers could be better as far as our box time and our milk speed. But for a dairy that's learning and in its first full year here, I think this dairy is doing extremely well. And one of the things that's happening here is we're keeping our fetching under control by keeping our turns up and our training to where we're only fetching six to maybe 10 cows if we have something going on for a maintenance issue or a robot down for every 2 robots. So, that's 10 cows for 120 cow groups that they have to fetch. So fetching's doesn't take them very long. A key factor here is when we're designing these barns is somewhere between 6 and 8 feet after that door, after the gate, the cow, we want to have a platform for that cow to come out and stand before she has to make the decision to go into the foot bath. I think it is extremely beneficial in keeping our flows in these types of barn. So if we switch to the next slide after the video, yeah, right here. So this is a different style. So this again is another an example of or it's an operating dairy, 8 robots. It's a little bit different design where they come out of the robot into a communable commitment pen, and then they're separated by a grazeway and sent down through an alleyway through the foot bath here you can see to get back to feed. And they're only doing this a few times a week, not every day, because we actually have the commitment pen opened up and we have to put in extra gating to have cows go through here. But in this dairy, we're milking about 478, fairly similar to what that other herd's doing. This dairy's been in operation for quite a few years. So they're well experienced in the robot world, and they're right at average about 84 pounds today and about 2.7 turns, and their box time is about 6.48. In this situation, we're guiding the cows through that foot bath a longer way away from the robot, and we have a grazeway that allows us to choose which cows go in and out of there. But we're only doing it a few times a week, and we can show you some lameness numbers. Where in May, when we weren't running the foot bath at all, that we were running, 57% digital dermatitis versus what we're doing currently after we started running the foot bath late summer, and we got it down to 38 right now, and really has significantly changed what's going on in this dairy. And while we're on this page, I think it's critical for all the information that we're collecting on the robot herds as to have some type of program that we're collecting the data, whether it's this all 4 hooves here or a hoof supervisor or some other data collecting information that the hoof trimmer is using to collect the data. Because if we're not collecting it, we can't fix it. We don't understand it of what's going on. If it's just written down on a yellow sheet of paper as a vehicle for payment, then that data is not being put into anything and analyzed. But this program here is a great program where we can look back and say, yep, look what we've done since we've instituted a better foot bath protocol.
Todd, can I say something real quick about this slide?
Yep.
If you notice, the is the digital dermatitis was reduced. Also, the white line lesions were reduced. Going back to what I was saying, how dermatitis can lead to other lesions because the cow is standing on the other hoof more. And white line lesions are usually caused by excess pressure. So if you've got a bad back right foot, you're standing on your back left foot more so because of the dermatitis. And now as we reduce the dermatitis, the white line lesions have reduced as well.
Yeah, and also there, and we notice we got 14.3% that fall in the category of other back in May too, that we don't know what the hoof trimmers put in here. And then we have basically none of that. So we're able to define better as we're moving forward, in this software system, so we can better manage what's going on this dairy. So if we look here, the group A, or example A and the example B, so example A would be that first robot facility that you saw with the cows coming out with the video, and the second one is example B here, is where the cows are coming down and being guided down, which we just looked at. And the interesting thing is here, so this is the astronauts 101 and so forth, as in the legend, is each of the robots. And on the left-hand one, those numbers are fairly consistent. So we're looking at milk speed here. So milk speed based on a daily basis. So 10:02 would be a Sunday, and then the next day is Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and Sunday. And so we're looking at those numbers. And I can get into a lot of trouble here because there's a lot of things that affect milk speed in a robot. But as we start analyzing this and we start looking at trends in lines and what's happening, we can associate that back. But what I wanted to show you in these two slides here, these two graphs, is the one on the left is very consistent. So it's right straight across. There's not a huge dip, compared to the one on the right where we're running the foot bath twice a week in those pens. And you could start to see what happens to milk speed as it goes down over time. Now, sure, there's some people on this webinar that can say, well, there's other things that affected that. Yeah, there probably are some other things that affected it in this data. But as we start looking at, our Tuesdays or our Wednesdays or our Thursdays that we're running the foot bath, we have a lot of effect on the milk speed going in there, and it associates, and this can go back in time. So we're looking at just a week here in time, but we could go back in time and we could see those same trends. So it's unlikely that it was a service or a breakdown would happen every week on a Thursday. That there's something that we're physically doing to these cows, and we're learning about this as we're dealing with how we push cows and manage cows within these robot facilities, how it's affecting the milk speed that these cows are being, how fast they're being milked out in these boxes. So really, really cool, interesting information that we're gathering. And we've got a lot more to learn about this, but we're gathering all these time points on these automated milking systems. And as we work more and more with them, we're refining these systems so that we're really going to be efficient in milking cows here. So this last one here is a one robot system, and you can see that the platform coming out of the robot. So this is an earlier design that I worked on a few years ago, trying to develop what is the right setup. And we had a cylinder on this gate, and we took it off for the summer here because it gave us some challenges. But again, this was a prototype, and it's a little bit too small for where the cow comes out of the robot, and so it affected us, and we'll see those numbers in just a minute. But this is a one robot dairy running about 53 cows, been dairying for a while. They're 3.1 visits, they're 7.18 box time, a little bit longer than we want, but 85 pounds of production, and they're running the foot bath twice a week. And if we switch to the next slide, we only have one line on there because we only have one robot. And you can see what happens on Tuesday, and then again on Thursday when he runs the foot bath. And this is pretty well, can go and see this in history back in time as we go through this type of pattern and how much it's affecting those cows and their dropping in their milk speed, just specifically running the foot bath. So as we move forward into the next slide, this is one of another herd where that commitment pen behind, where you can see the cows gated off. They gate them off, and then the cows are allowed to go back through this. And maybe Aaron, you could speak on this one for just a minute, because you really know this herd and how they're doing that. And then I can pick up when you're done.
Yeah. So what this dairy is doing is they groom the stalls or add sand on a daily basis, and when they do that, they push the cows to the back of away from the feed alley, to the back row, and then they'll add sand or groom the front, and at the same time somebody's feeding. So then when they're finished doing that front alley and they go start on the other side of the because there's two sides of this barn, when they start on the other side, they open up the foot bath, and these cows start volunteering to come through. Almost the whole group goes through on their own without being forced or pushed through, because they just got fed up front. And because they do it every single day, the cows are very used to it. And then when they finish on the grooming the other side of the barn, they come back here, and the last couple cows that are left that didn't volunteer get pushed through the bath, and then they groom the back. This one seems to work pretty well. There's lots of different ideas and solutions. This seems to work pretty well, especially since they're already taking care of the stalls all the time. And that's very important too for cow comfort. Robots, more comfortable cows, going to lay down and relax more.
Yeah, so I see a lot of setups as I cross the country like that facility here, where we're channeling the cows through the foot baths, and this works very well for the management of the employees. But so what we did is we went and we grabbed the data from this facility and put it into the same graphs that we were looking at the other dairy, and what you can see it on the left-hand side here. Both slides are from this same dairy, this 4-robot dairy, but if you look on the left, we're looking on a daily basis. So again, Sunday through Saturday, and it looks fairly consistent, because they're fairly consistent doing that. But then when we take it and we break it down on an hourly basis on the right-hand graph, guess what time they're doing their foot bath? And we can see some definite down trends in milk speeds around those times when we're in there manipulating those cows. And they're typically doing this around 7 o'clock in the morning. Is that right, Aaron?
Yes, that's right. Another thing to consider, I don't know how much of a difference it would make or add, but when they do this is also when they put their fetch cows in behind the robots.
Yep.
So those are fetch cows usually being milked at that time as well.
Yep, and so this is working well as far as getting the foot bath going for this dairy. But in the future discussions with this dairy, we may want to consider taking a look at what could we do better that would not affect those milk speeds, and is it a function of that we're forcing, or that we're guiding the cows through the foot bath, or is it we're overloading our fetch pens? I don't know, right? But all I'm saying here in the data is we start looking at it and saying, wow, we start to see some trends, and can we correct it? Can we make it better? Because if we keep our milk speeds up, our box times will be down, which allows us to milk more cows.
Yes, and that is the time that everything's happening. So, yep, that is, people are in the pens, they're moving cows, and that is the time that the milk speed drops down the most.
Sure. And I think going forward, as we manage these systems, we really have to start looking at what does that mean as far as how many cows we can milk in a facility, and making that a facility more efficient.
Foot bath take homes. You want me to take this one?
Sure.
Go ahead and start it out, Aaron.
All right, foot bath take homes. Placing the foot bath less than 8 foot from the robot exit gate and running it infrequently can result in longer box times or less visits. As as Todd was saying there, forcing the cows through the foot bath will result in longer box times, as we just saw in the last graph. Lameness will be a constant battle. If the foot bath is placed where it's inconvenient to use, that's because the people are going to just not run it or not run it properly. And anything that's inconvenient is going to be the first thing to go when things are busy or something else comes up. Best place for a foot bath is where it'll be consistently and correctly used, and the cows can voluntarily walk through. And again, frequently doing it will result in better results, and makes it more of a routine for the people and the cows. So more frequency is less stress for the cows. Daily use of the foot bath will cause less interruptions with the cow flow. That's what actually what I was just saying, because they become more comfortable with it. Farms that will, Chip, I'm sure you've seen this, farms that something comes up or in the winter and they stop running the bath for a little while, when they get it going again after a week or two, it's like they've never seen that bath before.
I think that's a good point, Aaron. In fact, try to make it normal. So
Yes.
even in your conventional herds, whenever you do the smallest thing different, it interrupts cows, and they're being handled and guided all the time. Now it makes it more so in a robotic herd, because they are kind of like free range in that barn. And when you've only going to run your foot bath a couple days a week, it's always going to be an interruption. So if we make it normal by having to go every day, next thing you know, it's common, and the cows just get used to it and they do it, and it's not going to cause an issue, drop of milk or anything else.
And it also is going to reduce cow defecation in the bath too. The cows that are more comfortable with it, they just walk right on through. And the cows that are less comfortable with it, they tend to stop more and do their business in the bath, which is depleting your products. Speaking of products.
Here are the products, AgroChem's products for foot bath. So historically, if you look at the two products that have been used most worldwide, have been formaldehyde, copper sulfate. And formaldehydes work very well in the right conditions. It's got strong antibacterial properties. It does the scabbing. Pros for it. I mean, it's inexpensive. Quick results. You can get very quick results using formaldehyde in the right temperatures, I will say. It's also biodegradable. So environmentally, it works out pretty good. The cons of it, basically overexposure. I've seen this many times, trimming for 40 some years. Basically, I have seen overexposures to with formaldehyde. Most commonly, I had seen it in heifer groups when people used it in heifers and stuff. Free range, so they would go back and forth through it, stand in it too long. Very similar to robotic dairies, where they're not being guided or not being pushed or anything else. It's corrosive, and something to take into consideration on formaldehyde is vapor pressure. It's hard to keep it stable for a long period of time. So it's something that if you want to put, and you're going to run these foot baths, a lot of robotic dairies, basically their foot bath is set up for 8 hours or 12 hours, knowing that the cows will be going through at least once or twice that day. Formaldehyde doesn't hold up that well over a long period of time. The other product that we'll talk about is the copper sulfate. It's got very strong antibacterial properties. Pros, it can be effective on DD and prevention of hoof rot. Organic dairies can be used in organic dairies. The cons, you got to think about if you're going to have this near the robot, it's very corrosive, eats up the metals quite a bit. It binds with manure more quickly, unless it has a buffered extender. Sometimes it's very difficult to mix. Running a lot of foot baths, basically go in, you see them, they drain their foot bath, and you still got your pile of copper sulfate right where it was dumped. It means someone has got to mix this product up. It's dangerous to handle. And when I'm saying dangerous to handle, it's mostly is when you're getting the dust and, breathing the dust in. That's where it becomes very difficult on the person doing a foot bath. Hillmax Foot Bath Concentrate. This is a product that I we run this for many different ones, and this here is a large dairy in Florida. You can see the staining and stuff on, but actually it works very well on robotics. And the reason is it works similar to formaldehyde, but it works at a slower range. So if these cows pass through there 3 or 4 or 5 times a day, it's not going to cause issues. Where formaldehyde, you have to be very careful about the amount you run, not to. And when we talk about running formaldehyde or running heel max on these continuous foot baths, means cows will be traveling through it daily and sometimes several times a day. You can run your product at a lot less concentration. So usually I run this product in a conventional dairy at about a 2 to 3% concentration. In a robotic dairy, I'm going to run this product at about a 0.5% to 1%, knowing that these cows might pass through there 2 to 3 times in that time period. The benefits: it will control digital dermatitis without the overexposure of burns. Visual cue is very nice to see that I can walk in and see if a dairy's using Heel Max just because of the staining. You look at the orangish brown staining on the hooves right above the hairline, right in the hairline. And then it's biodegradable. That makes it very nice for the environmental safety. You're getting you're getting it without the bad fumes of formaldehyde. You will not have that. And the nice thing about it is it maintains effectiveness in hot and cold and holds up over a long period of time. So if I put it in at 6 o'clock in the morning, I know 6 o'clock that evening is still held up very well, unlike formaldehyde that breaks down. Here is a study that we did, University of Minnesota and University of Wisconsin. They worked together on this. And we did a large study. I think probably the largest foot bath study done was this last year. We started in December, ended up in May on Heel Max, comparable to a heavy dose of copper. When I say a heavy dose of copper, it was average foot bath was 40 to 50 gallons, and we were running 20 pounds of copper in the foot bath. Okay, this is the most common herd level control method for dairies. Okay, it kills bacteria, avoids spread of bacteria, improving the hygiene and healthy feet. Foot bath benefits. These are what you're looking at. You see the foot bath on the right. So let's go to the next page. This is the Heel Max is non-inferior to copper sulfate. And we say, well, what does that mean? Basically, it means it's equivalent to it, but the researchers cannot use the word equivalent. It's where we ran the Heel Max for the 6 months next to the copper sulfate. And when the study got done, and this was done on 6,200 cows, I believe, and basically it came out, had the same results using copper sulfate or Heel Max. Hoof Max and copper sulfate. So if you're going to run copper in your foot bath, I would absolutely recommend running an acidifier and running a good acidifier. Don't price it by the barrel, because one barrel might tell you it's going to be $200. The next barrel might be $400, just giving ranges, and then but you might have to use 2 or 3 times as much. Use a good acidifier that has buffers in it. You want buffers in your acidifier. All right, and so it doesn't take much. I basically, on the Hoof Max, I'm going to run about between 9 to 11 ounces every 100 cows going through a foot bath. So if I'm doing 200 cows before I change my foot bath, or 300, I'm going to run 20 ounces. If I'm going to do 300, I'm going to run 30 ounces of this in there with my copper sulfate to keep it active.
Chip, when you said, I just had a question here, I think.
Sure.
When you said a buffer in that, what do you mean by a buffer? Is that something that you add in, or is that something that's already in the solution?
It's going to be right in a solution with your Hoof Max. So when I say that, you'll see that there's a lot of acidifiers out there, and a lot of them I would not recommend. And the reason is they're not buffered. Number one, buffering basically is going to make it so. On Hoof Max, here's a perfect example. I can stick my hand right straight into Hoof Max concentrate and hold my hand in there for half hour without an issue. It's actually been done up to an hour. I have not really had the extra time to spend a whole hour with it, but it's actually been done up to an hour. There's other acidifiers out there that, and they're basically, they're going to be a citric or they're going to be a sulfuric. And there's a lot of them sulfuric acidifiers out there that have no buffering. And it's basically pretty much straight sulfuric acid. So it'll smoke. And if you get it on your skin, which I did, I had some get on my skin a couple weeks ago, and it actually blistered right up. So I would not recommend those. You want to check and make sure there's buffers in your acidifier. And it's also going to keep it balanced at a longer period of time so it doesn't dissipate and break down. Any more? Next one. DuraHoof, that's our liquid copper. It's a one-step. It can be running through automated systems. Actually, there's quite a few robots that we run, robotic dairies that we run the DuraHoof at, because it's a product that actually holds up. I mean, this product could be put in, and one of the nice things about this, say you have an oversized, when I say oversized foot bath, a herd that's got 100 cows and you got a 150-gallon bath. And I know it sounds crazy, but some do have this. And basically what this will do, if you put this product in there, you can run that product. It'll hold up all week long. 4, 5, 6 days. This product will still stay stable. All right. It's got basically, it's a blend of copper sulfate and our Hoof Max all blended together in a liquid solution. So, and it's a great rotational product too. Sometimes I'll rotate my Heel Max with DuraHoof. 1 week Heel Max, 1 week DuraHoof. This way I'm making sure I'm covering all of the things I want my foot bath to do. And it's also available organic in an organic mixture. So, and it's great for automated systems. One more thing back onto the DuraHoof. If we can go back one, is something else I want to mention about the DuraHoof. The DuraHoof, when we talk about liquid copper, it's important to know how much copper is in liquid copper. A lot of people say, well, it's a 19%, it's 20%, it's 14%. Means that if your acidified copper is basically going to run about 10 pounds a gallon. So if I'm looking at a 19% liquid copper, basically it tells me it has about 1.9 pounds of copper. When I run a DuraHoof, I'm going to actually be running 5 to 6 gallons to give me 10 to 12 pounds of copper sulfate in a foot bath. So if you're going to run a copper foot bath, know how much product is in there, because you're probably, if these guys are only running 1 gallon of liquid copper, they're probably only running between 1.5 and 2 pounds of copper in your foot bath, which really isn't doing a lot. They have a lot of dye in there to make it look blue. So it's something to actually know what your liquid copper actually is when you're using it. Next question. Ultra 2-in-1 or Ultra 2-in-1 4X. What this is a concentrated blend of formaldehyde and copper solution contained in our Hoof Max. All right. And so when we say 2-in-1 and or the 2-in-1 4X, basically one is just got is the 2-in-1 is basically, it's going to be about we recommend on conventional dairies about a 12%, and in a 4X we recommend about an 8%. And when I say that is the max. If I'm going to run this in a robotic dairy, basically I'm going to sit there and run this, the 2-in-1, probably at a 6 or 8% solution. And I'm going to run my 4X at probably a 3 to 4% solution instead of 8%. Number reason why, because of the amount of passes that they might be traveling through the foot bath.
This would be a good one where in a robot dairy, it would have to be monitored very closely, and it's not as good for continuous where the cows are going out of the robot every time, because sometimes a cow visits a robot 21 times in a day, making this or making Heel Max a better for that sort of situation where the cows are coming out directly in. With Ultra 2-in-1 and 2-in-1 4X, it's important that it's not free flowing cows constantly, correct?
Oh, absolutely, Aaron. It's one of the things with formaldehyde that you have to be very careful on the robots just like you would a free flow of a heifer group. The fact is that they could go in there so many times and cause issues, burns and stuff. Nice thing about Max is it's a lot slower reacting than the formaldehyde is, so it'll actually be much safer and I think it's just a lot better product to use than a formaldehyde.
Well, and the 2-in-1 and 4X are great, but it just has to be monitored that it's not, cows there can be overexposure in robot dairies. Max is a great option.
Yes, it is.
5 things that can jeopardize any foot bath's results. Human error is probably the biggest one that I see. As a hoof trimmer, 18 years, I think that human error and improper foot bath size and incorrect protocol kind of go together. And then they also tie back in with human errors, usually figured wrong, or somebody's overfilling or underfilling or not putting enough product in. Lack of consistency. When they're manual foot baths, lack of consistency is huge because, again, if it's no fun to do, and it's the first thing that gets put to the side because something more important came up, and it's easy to get behind. So unreasonable expectations would be thinking that it's going to work if you've got incorrect protocol or it's not being run consistently. So how do we avoid this? Foot bath dosing systems. Chip, do you want to tie in here? The benefits of automated foot bath system on robot dairies is the consistency, and this is something I've seen a lot recently is with a lot of systems, automated systems going in dairies that we service. The consistency and also the ease. It's done, so it takes away that we're busy today. Reduced human error. I've seen situations where somebody overfilled with water because they thought they were doing a better job, didn't understand that diluted the product more, and it actually made it not as good of a bath. Safety. Nobody's handling products anymore. Nobody's standing around waiting for the water to fill either. The conveniences. These are a push button, or this one here on the wall is push button, but some of them we can have them start up at a certain time and run and redose, which is very convenient and saving money with the dosing system that's set up to dose multiple times in a day. That can save money with labor and chemical, and also with using a system and having a better results. We reduced our cost of lameness or milk losses. Equal or reduced lameness. Research shows lameness reduces productivity at peak yields by up to 20% at an estimated cost of $350 to $800 per case. And I would say that's accurate or even low.
Here is where we had it's just on a farm we used Ultra 2-in-1, and this is before and after putting a dosing system in. So if you look at the brownish orange would be before, and then your post would be after we started the systems. So 6 months of digital dermatitis before, way up there, real high. So he's turned around, and then the same thing with the hoof rot. If you look how much hoof rot, and then so we turned around, we put a system in, and we look at the difference, how much we dropped. So we had 873 cases in the 6 months prior. We had 153 cases on the 6 months following. Now this was I think it's around a 1,500 cow dairy. And then your foot rot, you had 38 cases prior to doing it. You had 11 cases after for the 6 months. And then you lost cows. They went through lost cows on lameness. Basically 31 before, 2 after. That's all it was. Now, the protocol didn't change because it was supposed to be the same amount of product, but it was done manually. And being done manually, what happened was it wasn't getting done right. So we didn't change the protocol. We gave the same protocol. We just put an automated system in to make sure it was getting done correct. So it was a huge difference just putting the auto system in. Okay. And here is another system we have. It's called our FDS 8. It's automated. This system will actually run up to 8 baths. It will turn on by itself, shut off by itself. You can run 2 different products. So whatever days of the week or every day you want to run, nighttime if you want to run it at night, you don't have to, excuse me, you don't have to worry about someone mixing up the product correctly or getting done. It will turn on automatically. Say you want to run it on, if you're sorting cows, you're doing things in the earlier in the day, you might want to run this at evening. But if robotic dairy, you're talking, if you got 8 up to 8 foot baths, this one system will actually take care of it and turn on whenever you set it to. Okay, also could be set up to Gia bladders. Very nice system. And it does a multiple of things. The simple foot bath system, this one here, just hit the button. It'll actually run up to 2 baths. It's just something that is actually, we started out thinking this would fit a lot of smaller dairies, but we actually have this in the large dairies also. So all you got to do is walk in, hit that green button on the front of it, and it will fill up your foot bath with water and your chemical. No handling of any product.
You know, it's no surprise, Chip, as I go across the country and I see these automated foot baths, that those dairies have less digital dermatitis than the dairies that have manual foot baths.
Oh, I would agree with that, Todd. And the reason I do it is because if you'd seen the graph a little earlier, you'd have seen a product, someone would think, well, this product doesn't work because of the results. The problem is it's not the product, it's actually whether it got done or not. Right. And human error to me is the largest, whether the foot bath wasn't getting cleaned out, and you know, human error can multiply in a lot of different things. But just getting the bath filled to the same amount consistently and the right amount of chemical consistently, it makes a difference on how well that product works. So the needs for an install, basically we need a dry location that you can put the system. We don't want it getting sprayed down with water or anything else. We want it in dry. When I say spaces for 2 totes, the reason we say spaces for 2 totes is sometimes we run a tote of water. If you have a very inconsistent flow of water, we might want to set a tote up that has a float on it and run our water off of a pump so we have a consistent flow. Air regulator. So the systems we like to run, we like to blow out the lines every time it runs so we don't have to worry about any freezing. So we'll just have a small air regulator to control about 30 pounds of pressure to make sure the line is blowed out. Water's got to be a consistent flow. If it's not, then basically we're going to put that's where the other tote comes in, that we're going to fill with water and run off of a pump. And then the foot bath design, basically that's where you got guys like Todd that does a lot of this, and Aaron and myself. We go in and we lay it out so that you're going to have your best cow flow. You know, it's going to make it easier. The last thing we want you to do is have to start dragging foot baths around and setting them up. And that means it doesn't get done correctly. The other thing is it happens a couple days a week. And as you can see from all the graphs, how much that changes your milk speed and your cows getting to the robot. Anybody guys want to add anything onto that, Todd or Aaron?
No, I think it just goes hand in hand with these automated systems. The more automation we put in here, the less human error we get, and we get better results from that. And the ability to monitor the things is just the the real important part here. So
yeah, it almost always makes it easier. It almost always makes it cost less, and it almost always makes it work better because it's being done right.
So yeah, if you want to contact anybody out there, want to contact us, here's the information. Any one of us can help you out, and definitely something you want to really keep in focus if you are just looking at putting robots in or need to improve what you have. Do not hesitate. Contact one of us and see if we can help you out.
Right. Well,
Is there
thanks, guys.
questions?
In a second, we'll let you do a few final thoughts, but there were a few questions.
Sure.
Jan asked, do we get a recording of the webinar? This webinar will go up on YouTube once it's done, and I believe our marketing manager will have a way to send it to link for anybody who's been registered, so you can pull it up from there. Mike has asked, which you also just answered, but we can go over again. Has a water metering system for the automated dosing system ever been considered? Because they have a dairy with inconsistent water pressure and flow.
Yes, water meter has been considered, yes.
Okay. Because we're already doing it. Yes. With a pump, yes. Okay. And then one question that came via text to me was, why can a farm run at a lower concentration in a foot bath when it's used every day? And then would the cost of the foot bath be closer to the same as running it, say, 4 days a week at a higher concentration?
Yes. Answer to that would be yes. You can run it every day. It's like you don't need as much if you're running on a daily basis because you're killing your bacteria daily, or you're keeping things in their check daily. So you can run at a lot less strength. Yes, absolutely. And your cost comes out very close to the same. Very close to the same. You don't need to run nearly as much.
And the part we really got to look at here is the cow wants consistency on a daily basis. So running that foot bath every day makes a consistent pattern for that cow, less likely to affect her.
Mm-hmm.
And a lot of it, the way the foot bath works is about product contained on the hoof, creating a hostile environment for bacteria. So the more frequent, the more product is going to stay on the hoof, even though it's run at a lower rate. It's going to be consistently there.
One question is there a place where we can see clear and defined recommendation on foot bath protocols based on your 3 products for both starting out and long-term maintenance in the robot barns?
Could you repeat that? I want to make sure I understood it before.
Yes. Is there a place where we can see clear and defined recommendations on foot bath protocols based on the 3 products, both starting out and long-term maintenance for robot barns? I think I can help answer that a little bit, which is there's not a clear and defined because there isn't a farm that's clear and defined and that they all go into the same. It's going to be dependent specifically on that farm and how they're running their foot bath and how they're willing to run their foot bath. But you guys can continue on that one as well.
Hygiene, stress levels, every farm is going to be a little bit different. So we have kind of rough guidelines, but every farm needs to be considered independently, and everything taken into consideration. Hygiene and stress can have a big impact.
Absolutely.
Your hoof trimmer and your solution and your chemical guy are valuable tools. They're not just salespeople for your facility. They're valuable tools to be used, and the dairies that use them for their knowledge and experience are the dairies that do have a better handle on foot health than the dairies that try to do it by themselves. You can't be scared of Chip and Aaron and those people out there that are doing these things. They come to the farm and they have a lot of knowledge and experience to help us on these individual places. So I don't think there's a place to go that you can get a one fit all recommendation that you gotta employ or have some of these folks like Chip or Aaron or myself come in and help you work with those with the foot bath and what's specific to your dairy, and you'll see that you'll get your best success that way.
Yes, that's very true, because it's very difficult to have a one set protocol. Every dairy is a little different.
Yeah, but also as we've mentioned through this webinar, it has a lot to depend on where the foot bath is and how often it's going to be run before we can even talk about the products and maintenance and treatment. Then there's a question, is there a spec sheet for the capacity of what size foot bath per number of head going through it? And that's no, because there's a range, but I'll let you guys talk about why there's a range.
Well,
The question is the basically the number of cow passes you can get per volume of foot bath is really, they're wanting to know how many you can get per volume, but there is in fact a range. So if you want to explain why there's a range.
Yeah, there's a range because if we're looking at our width or our length of the foot bath, so if I said I've got a 100-gallon foot bath and it's 8 foot long and 6 foot wide, basically I know that I can get a lot more cows through there than I could on a 100-gallon foot bath that is 2 foot wide and 12 feet long or whatever, you know, or 14 foot, because the length, the longer the foot bath, the narrower the foot bath, the more accumulation of manure and urine that you're going to collect too. And so there's foot baths that are designed differently. And we have foot baths that we're running 1,000 cows through. And we have another style foot bath that I might only get 300 cows through. And it could be very much the same volume. It's the design. Cow flow to me is everything about how well a foot bath works. Wider foot baths, 8 foot long foot baths, I can get a lot of cows through. And it works very well.
The cleanliness of the floors leading to the foot bath is going to have a large impact on that number as well.
Yes.
And how
For example, cows coming through a lot of manure and stepping in it, we're not going to get as many cows through it. But I've seen dairies with super clean walkways for the bath. They get a lot more cows through that bath, working excellent.
Yeah.
and how calm the cows are going to and from in our robot facilities, how calm they're handled and moved through, because the natural defense of the cow is to defecate, right? So if she's really under stress or she's not having a good time at that robot, when she comes out and goes through, she's more likely to fill that foot bath with manure, right? So.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely.
You know, if people are looking for a more of a number, depending on a 40 to 50 gallon foot bath, depending, it could be, I mean, if a cow jumps in it and splashes it all out, the answer is you have 3 cows that can go through it. But I would say on average, you're looking more maybe on the 150 to 250, depending on kick out, organic flow, things like that, which again, it's a trial by area, and also that's why it's individual per farm. But somewhere, it gives you somewhere to start. The question is HealMax organic approved? The answer is no. I don't believe it can be with some of the parts in it that it won't come through. When organic dairies have a need, the DuraHoof is one that is organic. Also, I've had very good luck with most certifiers will allow HoofMax going with copper sulfate. So we can make a very good foot bath that way. But if you guys have other recommendations that you've done with other organic barns, go ahead.
I do not. Basically, it's a DuraHoof or a copper with an acidifier. That's what things I've come up with.
I agree.
Yep. Okay. One question is, how many days a week would you recommend HealMax in a robot dairy?
7.
I would say 7 as well. 7 with a low percentage. Keep it.
The reason is I'm going to add in the fact of my cow flow gets used to going through it and it becomes normal.
Would you say that's unique to HealMax or a number of our products that's non-formaldehyde?
I would recommend that with any product and just keep my strength down regardless of what your product is, my percentage of that product. And I want it Robotic. I think that you need to make it normal. You need to make it so it's an everyday thing. So you get your cow flow. You do not want to disturb or cause incidences that are going to be changing 3 days a week. If I run it this way, I might get the results for the dermatitis, but I'm also screwing these cows up because 3 days a week, it's this way. The other 3 or 4 days a week, it's this way. You know, let's try to make it normal.
Okay.
Every day.
Even if the foot bath is at the end of the barn, you would recommend 7 days a week. If that's a question. That is a question.
Okay. Oh, here we go. Now we're going to be pushing the cows through. Is that is this a question? Is this going to be a manual push through, or is this going to be you're going to guide them through, or is it going to be a free flow?
I'm gonna guess unless he pushed through. Yep,
Push through, he
pushed through.
says.
Force guided.
I can speak to this one here if
Sure.
I would not recommend that because you know, typically we're going to use the one at the end of the barn when we're managing the stalls, and we probably don't manage the stalls on a daily basis as far as bringing that in. So we're really disturbing that pen of cows. If it's on the end of the barn like that, I would probably say we would manage that around bringing in bedding for the stalls and work it that way. So we're less disturbing the system.
The other thing is if we're forcing the cows through the bath on the end of the barn, which like you said is going to be it's going to put the cows out for a while. Heel max needs to be ran more frequently, and cows need to be disrupted less frequently. So it's probably a better situation for a product like Ultra 2-in-1 or Ultra 2-in-1 4X, because we can have great results with 3 times a week. Result less labor and less cow handling. As much as I really love the heel max in that into the barn, pushing the cows through, Ultra 2-in-1's probably going to be a better product. Would you agree, Chip? What's your thought?
Yes, because it's quicker reacting. Yes.
Yeah, we can do it with less passes, and with it being pushed through, where there's no worry of overexposure.
So, if you run the bath 7 days per week, is there any concern about building any immunity to any of our products, or because of that, should we rotate products? How does that work?
I have never in 18 years seen immunity built up. Have you?
No, no, I've never seen immunity build up.
I've
Yeah.
seen things fluctuate like hygiene, and
Mhm.
people said, "Oh, they're immune." No, it's dirtier. You're overcrowded. There's higher stress levels, stuff like that. But a properly run foot bath can keep things under control.
Well, and adding to just the mechanisms of healing, if you look at Heal Max or a formaldehyde-based product, it's a scabbing agent. It cross-links proteins. That's not something that you can that an animal can become immune to. That's just what it does when it hits skin like that. In the case of copper, it's a bit more corrosive on the skin, cauterizing. Again, that's not something you can get immune to because it's not an immune response of the body. It's a response of like a chemical being on top of it. So same thing. I haven't seen there either. If you use 7 days a week of foot bath, is there any harm with doing it only like using only copper sulfate as your foot bath? I think is in not rotating it I think was what I'm understanding with that question.
You're not going to burn the feet. It's just going to be the most expensive option. I mean,
Yeah,
you're not going to overexpose copper sulfate because only a certain amount's going to mix anyways.
Yep.
It's just the most expensive option, and it will work, but it's labor intense and expensive.
Yes.
Another question that was sent to me here for Todd as well. It's for all three of you, especially Todd. So, I mean, a lot of it is a battle of barns that are already built. Is how are we going to maintain and maintain a low level of lameness so we can have voluntary milking, and also not reduce any of the milk speeds, not reduce any of the box times, anything like that. So, but for future barns being built for consideration, in a perfect world, I guess, how are you designing it? Where do you think the foot bath should be? How often do you think it should be run? With all things considered, with lameness and milk speed, what would be the best recommendation today for new barns?
Yeah, so what I know today is like what we saw in that first farm example A, where we have the plenty of room for the cow to get out of the pens, and I'm a big advocate of these 2 robot pens, 120 cows in each of the pens. I think they're managed better than 3 or 4 robots in those pens. So, and that helps us with putting that foot bath in between the 2 robots facing each other head to head. In the past, we had many issues with a left hand versus a right-handed robot in connections, and that's less and less. So I don't think we have to worry about getting it all coming in on the same side anymore. to where we can have it to where the cows coming head to head, and it makes those barns flow really, really well when we're setting them up that way. So, you know, if in my designs currently and in my future designs are going to be more and more of that, where we're going to have a communable foot bath in between the robots like that, and they come out, and then we can gate those cows off, and pick and choose which cows we want to go through that robot with a cylinder gate in front of the robot. So
In front of the foot bath, yes, in the robot.
yeah, in front of
So,
the foot, yeah.
Yeah, and I would agree with Todd. Watching that herd, I was just extremely impressed of how smooth those cows went through the foot bath. There was no hesitation. It became normal, and the flow was just tremendous. I couldn't.
Yeah, and I think going forward, I'm starting to see more and more of that data, and we talked about this as a group here earlier this week. I think the consistency of doing it every day has some validness to it, and in the future we may want to be looking at that. Or can we set these up to run every day? Then it's consistent for the people that are doing it, and it's very consistent for the cows.
Got a
One
question
more
here about.
question.
Yes, go ahead.
Yep. Okay. So would Heel Max 4 days straight and DuraHoof 3 days a week, 3 days straight, and all as a week protocol be a good program? So
Yes.
4 days Heel Max and 3 days DuraHoof every week.
Yes. Yes. The reason I'm going to say that is Hilmax, it targets digital dermatitis, but your copper with your DuraHoof, that really works well with your foot rot. So that would actually be an excellent program. 4 days a week with Hilmax, 3 days a week with DuraHoof. It's actually a very good program.
Okay. A rule of thumb that others have heard is that the foot bath always had to be 8 foot long in order to get all 4 hooves. Otherwise, they could potentially skip a sore hoof. Do you agree with that? And also, what's your recommendation of length?
Well, I would say one thing here, again, it's every farm is a little bit different. The farm that I've worked with for a long time has had the best results of any farm. They have a 6 foot long foot bath. Well, why do they have the best results? Because they run it consistently all the time and they never vary. And Chip mentioned earlier cow flow, how important that is. The wider the foot bath is, the easier the cow flow. The longer, if you have it wider and longer, now it costs a lot more to fill. And if we keep them gone, then we don't have to worry about the cows skipping the sore hoof.
And if you'll look at the foot bath that we ran a video on, it probably is. Todd, how long is that foot bath altogether? 10 feet, that communal foot bath? And yet the cows are turning halfway out, so they're using probably 5 foot of it. Excellent results. If you look at the time that they spent in there, they're not going to be missing it. If the foot bath is set up correctly, the cows will not miss it.
If you look at the gating doesn't allow the cow to miss it either, right? She's got to walk, and then that swing gate in there, she makes that turn. She can't skip it with a foot.
Show it once.
There's no way for her to skip.
So is it okay to have less than a 8 foot bath? What would be the minimum you think? Or what are the considerations if you have less than an 8 foot? And also like longer than 8 foot, is that better or worse?
So working with a bunch of trimmers, and so after a couple of years, I says, guys, I needed the records of. I work with a large group of trimmers selling foot baths and monitoring dairies, and basically I did a comparison on the dairies that was 6 foot long foot baths to 12 foot long foot baths, and it was on thousands and thousands of cows. And you know what the difference was? That they were shocked. I wasn't shocked about it, but they were shocked to report that they had the same results with a 6 foot long foot bath as a 12 foot long foot bath. The biggest thing is consistency of using it. more than it was the length of the foot bath. I'm not going to say 12-foot long foot baths don't work well. They do, but it's got to fit the herd. Your foot bath needs to fit the herd it's placed in. So basically they both work. Do I think you need a 12-foot long foot bath? If I had really horrible hygiene, maybe you do for washing the feet.
Well, I don't see any other questions. Do you three have any final thoughts here before we close this out?
Well,
I think we covered most of it.
I'm hoping that we're able
Okay.
to help someone look at it's setting up their robots and taking consideration setting a foot bath up, because there's always been that saying, you know what, you can't run foot baths in the robots because it slows the flow down. But if you make it consistent, it actually does not. It's done successfully in many robots.
Yep, I fully agree with that, Chip.
All right. Well, thank you three for presenting and your work on this project, and really looking into how we can benefit our robot barns and reduce lameness without causing any issues with milk flow. And thank you all for attending. I have the email addresses up here. If you would like to reach out to Chip, Aaron, or Todd directly, or you can contact sales at agrochemusa.com for any other inquiries, and we will get back to you. So again, thank you very much. Just a webinar by AgroChem USA, a company of Cursia. And everybody have a great weekend.
Thank you. You also.